afternoon. This is the title of my talk, Go Beyond Your Comfort Zone. And just this very moment, I'm going beyond it because, like he said, pag magsasalita ka in front of people, nakakatakot, even if you've had a lot of experience like I have, nakakatakot pa rin. And my talk this afternoon is medyo mas nakakatakot. So most of you know me as a columnist. Now, where do I press it? There, yeah. Most of you know me as a columnist, a writer, an English writer, who has written about STEM and Hans. So I've given you materials to use to sell. And I'm your upline, whatever that means, upline to most of you. Okay? Gusto mo ninyo mag-Tagalog na lang ako? Ha? Okay. So, nung una akong sumulat about STEM and Hans, I was around 66 years old. I began to writing columns in the Philippines when I was 44 years old. So there are about 22 years in between when I wrote columns for Manila Chronicle, which later was sold, and then the Manila Times, the Philippine Daily Inquirer, and finally the Philippine Star. Iba akong columnist. Nung bumalik ako I was in the US, I came home, I wanted to be a columnist in the Philippines. So what I did, I bought all the newspapers and read them for 1 week. And I started to panic because everybody was writing about politics. And I hate politics. So, sabi ko, there were just a few who were writing about health, motoring, fashion, gossip. So I was getting distressed. I said, what do I have to do to become a respected columnist in this country? Everybody's writing just about politics. So suddenly, I had a flash. I can write about life. I know my life. So I can write about my life honestly. And that's what I did. Then the other columnist na eskandalo, no? How come na kaya kong gawin yon? Eh sabi ko naman, yung mga eskandalo ng buhay ko, lumipas na. They were 10 years old, no? Of course, they were still scandalous, but never mind. I was used to it, I didn't care anymore. No? But by then, I was 44, mature enough, and bold enough to write about my life candidly. My life began like a beautiful glass vase. Just a plain glass vase. My father was killed by the Japanese when I was 6 months old, just after World War II. So my life might have seemed like a beautiful glass vase, pero may lamat. Okay? I grew up without a father, and that made me look for substitutes. I had also grown up in a family of women who were widowed in the war. My grandmother, my mother, my aunts, they had to find the strength in themselves to carry on. Ako ba, nagkukwento ba ako dito kasi I'm enjoying myself? No. It's for you to understand that to succeed in work, you must understand your life and see the role work plays in it. So, please listen and I hope you will be entertained. All the men in our family were killed by the Japanese. I grew up without a father, so I had to search for substitutes. My first substitute was a husband. I married at 18. And those are my 3 daughters. Yeah. You probably only know Panji, who is in the middle, because I don't think you see that very clearly. But anyway, Panji, she used to come out on TV before. She's my daughter. She's the youngest. She has 2 older sisters, each very pretty in her own way. But life with my husband was hell. So, in the end, I packed up my daughters and left. That was the first time I walked away from my comfort zone. What is a comfort zone? It's a place where you exist like you're brain dead. Ay, teka muna, mali. Yeah. It's where you have, you're like you have a frog's brain. You have no worries. You have a husband who's responsible for supporting you and your children. there to worry about, di ba? Sabi nila. Pero marami. Okay? So, nung iniwan ko ang asawa ko, it was like taking a leap into a bottomless black hole. I was afraid, uncertain, I didn't know what would happen. I had to think. I brought my 3 little girls with me. I knew my husband. Well, he would not support me, or give me very little, or not pay me until I presented the receipts. And the quickest was 2 months after. So the first thing I had to do was find a job that would pay me an adequate salary. I called up an old friend who was working for an advertising agency. Sabi ko, may trabaho ba kayo dyan para sa isang babaeng housewife lang? Because that's all I knew how to do. I'm not even a college graduate, because I married at 18. So, sabi nga, we have a vacancy for an account executive for Pure Foods. And strangely enough, she needs to be a housewife. So I said, okay, I'm going for the interview. I went for the interview. I got the job. And in 2 weeks, I was in a new comfort zone. Of course, the separation from my husband broke my fast. But, okay naman, it could be glued together and it was still holding water, so it was an okay fast. So I worked. I was young, 24. Very pretty. I ran into an old friend who was married, but who became a very ardent suitor. I'm sorry to say this, baka the men will take offense, but when a married man makes you ligaw, it's very, talagang sobra. He'll send you flowers every day. Ay nako, it's talagang sobra. So what can I say? We fell in love. Deeply ko no. After 2 years, I became pregnant. That's my only son, and he's now 42. I'm cheating a little on all these pictures, so you think I'm younger than I am. Okay, so the second man in my life worked for the Marcos government. He left his wife and we lived on McKinley Road, Old Forbes Park, in a very comfortable home. It was a genuinely grand comfort zone in terms of wealth. I turned into a fancy crystal vase. So medyo maraming design yan. Diba? We had no problems about where to get money for anything. But slowly we drifted apart. And slowly I realized the money was coming from kickbacks and I didn't like that. Also at the time, he wanted control of an airline for the Marcoses. And he had many other women on the side. So in the end, I got turned in for an airline. So for a long time, that was my consuelo de bobo, diba? Ano value ko? Airline. Once again, my crystal vase, my life was shattered. This time I had a little bit of money saved, but only a little. My children and I moved from a mansion to a small house, a bungalow. And everything was at my own expense because I did not get any money again. Because nag-insulto ako ng grabe. So, I tried to take him to court, but we were under martial law. And he was in power, and so I never got anywhere. But I managed to keep my children and myself alive. And I told myself that was the end of any serious relationships with men. By then I was 33. No more marriage, but just the end of serious relationships. Anyway, at that time, my life was shattered and I was in a lot of pain. I cannot remember how long it lasted. It was like a shard of glass stuck in my heart. By the way, I put that there because that's my painting. I looked for another job in advertising and found one in McCann Erickson on the Coca-Cola account. Then, little by little, I began to put myself together again to form a new mended vase that could still stand tall and hold enough water to get through life. That marked the beginning of my successful professional life. Okay? What had life taught me this far? That you can make mistakes, but you will never die because of them. Your own mistakes will never kill you. They will change you. Sure, you break, but you can paste your pieces together to make a stronger person who sees more clearly and more deeply. Change gets you out of your comfort zone. That's the secret. It gives you a new life. And what is the value of a new life? A new life always teaches you new lessons. So I began to get more and more competent, to learn to mix laughter with seriousness. I don't know how to translate this but I think of myself as maginoo pero medyo bastos. Okay? I learned that the most important, and by the way, the most fun for me, was the freedom to decide what I thought was the next best thing in my life. Ako lang yun. I don't have to consult anybody. Of course, it was never that simple. There were other things that had to be considered. My work had to be considered, my children, my health, money. Like even if I thought that the next best thing for me was to go to Paris for a year, who will take care of my children? Do I speak French? Do I have the money? And the answer to all those was nobody and no. So then, even if I thought it was going to be the next best thing, I didn't do it.